Siege X is coming out in a couple months, and you need to know the best defenders to help you rank up in the new update. This will be an updated list of the best defenders in Rainbow Six Siege. At number 10, I got Bandit. Starting off with Bandit's loadout, he honestly has one of my favorite loadouts in the entire game. The MP7 is an insane primary gun. Don't let this recoil pattern down here fool you. This thing is a laser. Personally, I do run the flash hider, but honestly, you don't have to. I've used the extended barrel sometimes, and it's really not that bad. The M870 can be fun, especially after the weird shotgun buff we got last season. It's honestly not that bad as long as you hit center mass. And a secondary pistol is really just a secondary pistol. It is still really good. Honestly, it seems like one of the best pistols in the game. And for secondary gadgets, you have the nitro cell or the barbed wire. I can't remember the last time I seen someone above copper use barbed wire on Bandit. It really is just an unwritten rule that you have to use C4. But regardless, I think Bandit is well deserving of this top 10 spot. It does take a little bit more skill, but you can Bandit trick. And if you're good at it and you have some good teammates playing around you, it makes getting any wall almost impossible. For example, on Clubhouse, if you pair Bandit, Castle, Azami, and a Jaeger or Wamai, you can castle off this door, spam Wamais or Jaegers on this window, and Azami could be playing here, for example. You can just sit here and completely deny entry into the hallway. But like I said, Bandit is well deserving of this top 10 spot. I really couldn't think of anyone else to give it to. Number 9 is going to be Valkyrie. Intel is a really important thing in Siege, and I think Valkyrie does it the best out of any defender. And we're going to ignore all the Valkyrie haters out there. The MPX is a pea shooter, but it has no recoil. You'll have no trouble hitting heads every single time with this gun. But to be fair, the Spaz is more of a meme gun. I can't remember the last time I used this thing. I think the last time I used it was on Oryx. There's just really no point in using this unless you're actually skilled with shotguns. And obviously the Deagle secondary, it's good for wall destruction, making light head holes, but you're not making any rotates with this thing. Now the cool thing about Valkyrie is you really do have two viable options for secondary gadgets. Personally for me, I am always running the nitro cell. I love C4ing below with her cameras. But if you want to be more of a sight setup anchor type of Valkyrie player, you're going to be better off using the impact grenades. Obviously, you know you can put her cameras anywhere, and I think Chalet is the perfect map for that. If you didn't know, obviously you can't throw your camera in these plants. It just destroys them. But if you throw a camera on the wall and then one down, you can get it into the plants like that. And the attackers are never going to find this. Obviously, an IQ can counter it. Thatcher, I guess. But in a normal round, no one's going to be looking for this. Chalet is one of my favorite maps to use Valkyrie on. Next up at number 8, we have Melusi. Melusi used to not be on this list for me. I thought she was really good when she had the ACOG. Even back when she had the T5, I think she was still a really good defender. But with the addition of the shotgun on her loadout, she's become an insane sight setup operator. And the MP5 is just a great gun with or without the ACOG. If we were in 2016, I would say use the Super 90, but this thing sucks now. And if you don't really want to do any sight setup, Melusi has one of the only secondaries with a sight on it. And honestly, both of these secondary gadgets are viable. I do like using the bulletproof camera. I think it's actually a really underrated secondary gadget. But the impact grenades are good too, especially if you don't want to use the secondary shotgun. Number 7 is going to be Azami. To me, Azami used to be the best defender in Siege, but because of her nerf she got last year, it's really tough to put her that high. I still think she is really good. Honestly, I don't see a lot of people shooting Kiba barriers to destroy them, but just the fact that that is a thing, it knocks her down a little bit. Her loadout is amazing. Honestly, one of my favorites in the game. She has the Russian SMG. This thing just no recoil, good damage, and good mag size. This gun is one of the most reliable SMGs in the game. And even though slug shotguns just got a nerf, the ACS is still really good. I'm still terrified every time I hear one of these things as an attacker. And of course, she has the Deagle for head holes, sight setup, whatever you need. And again, both of these secondary gadgets are viable. Personally, I'm going to use the impact grenades every single time. There are just other defenders where you're bringing barbed wire anyway, but I could see why you would bring barbed wire with Azami. We all know Azami is a really popular operator to bring on basement and Chalet, specifically for the hold she can do on blue. If you place a Kiba on this beam right here, and then you play the 90 in blue, this creates a one-way that attackers are going to have a really hard time contesting. Especially if you pair it with another Kiba like this, attackers are not going to have a good time competing against this. But I bring this up because this is a good time to bring barbed wire. Not only could it give you a sound cue to when someone is actually on the blue stairs, but if you're going against a bunch of coppers that think they have to hit it or crouch under it, The barbed wire will give you another sound cue if they get close to it at all. And if they're to the point where they're hitting this anyway, it's a free kill for you playing in 90. But she can also do a lot like help the bandit trick by covering the drone hole. And another really popular Kiba is to place it on the edge of the table right here. And it creates a little pixel on the wine door. The next operator on the list is going to be Fenrir. People say he's terrible after his nerf he got last year. All they did was they made his FNATs not bulletproof anymore. I still think he's really good, especially if you find a rat spot to put the FNAT. But going over his loadout, he has the MP7. We already talked about this gun with Bandit, but it's an amazing weapon. And then a little bit of a meme gun. As you can see, I have the big ass suppressor on it. But in my opinion, the Sausage is the worst shotgun in the entire game. It is automatic, so if you're quick, you can control that jump up recoil. It's okay, but honestly, I would not use this over the MP7. That is because you have a shotgun secondary being the Bailiff. The Bailiff is just unmatched in its usefulness. And then it feels like every operator in the game has this pistol. And then for secondary gadgets, you have the option between bulletproof cameras or observation blockers. And again, like I said earlier, I'm using the bulletproof camera every time. And like I said earlier about the rat spots with Fenrir's gadget, there are a ton on Canal, specifically Skybridge. I do have a couple that will make attackers terrified to push this, especially if you pair it with the Azami right here. All you have to do is throw an FNAT into the computers. Attackers are going to be so confused why they cannot swing this angle. They're not going to know where this is coming from at all. It works 100% of the time for me. Also, if you want to get a little bit more risky, you can break this barricade down, shoot the glass out. And if you place a Fenrir right here, activate it, and then close up the barricade, this will also blind any attackers pushing here. You just got to remember to shoot open a little bit of the barricade right next to the FNAT. The first defender in our top 5 spot is going to be Smoke. Smoke is and always will be the ultimate plant denial operator. If you are alive with 30 seconds left with 3 smoke cans, it's end of the round. You can completely block off portions of sight for up to 10 seconds per canister. Smoke is one of my favorite defenders to play in Siege. I'm going to get a lot of hate for saying this, but I think the FMG9 is a solid option. If they were to do Smoke like they did Sledge and take away his SMG-11, I think everyone would use the FMG-9. The FMG-9 just gets overshadowed by the M590. And understandably, this shotgun is the best in the game. And obviously for secondary guns, you have the SMG-11. Just like the barbed wire on Bandit, I can't remember the last time I seen anyone use this pistol because the SMG-11 is the best secondary SMG in the game. Now for secondary gadgets, you have the option between barbed wire and proximity alarms. Personally, I'm using barbed wire every time. It's the same reason why you would pair barbed wire with Thorn and barbed wire with Malusi. The longer you can keep an attacker in your smoke just means the more damage you are doing to them, even if it's just for 1 extra second. But I could see why you would use the prox alarms. They're good for that extra flank watch, especially if you're a weirdo who likes to roam with smoke. But regardless, the barbed wire will give you that audio cue anyway, so I guess it's really up to you which one you'd like to use. For number 4 on our list, we have Legion. I think Legion is the only operator in the game that can be changed so many times in such a short amount of time and still be considered one of the best in the game. My only thing with him is that he does get his goos a little too slow, but honestly that's not really a big deal. If you have really efficient placement with his canisters, it can give you really good results every round. Going over his loadout, he has this monstrosity of a shotgun. I don't know why, I just hate this thing so much. Honestly, I think it's the mag size. Having 6 bullets in an automatic shotgun is just insane. But honestly, it's really a balancing thing. That doesn't change the fact that it's still terrible. And having the T5 in Legion's loadout makes the shotgun even worse. The T5 is undoubtedly one of the best SMGs in the game. It's strong, it has a high fire rate, and it has little to no recoil. And Dark Zero has the best pro league skin I've ever seen for it. Moving on to the secondaries, you do have a pistol if you want to go that route, but for me, I'm using the Super Shorty on Legion for as long as I can remember. It's just great for sight setup, especially with the way you play Legion. Personally, I play him as an anchor, so a lot of the time when I play Legion, it's my job to set up sight. Now for secondary gadgets, you have the option between a bulletproof camera or an observation blocker. And like I said, I'm running bulletproof every time. This is the most underrated secondary gadget in the game. Something I do want to point out with Legion is that he's actually a really good plant denial. I really like to bring him on coastline, especially in billiards. When attackers are taking aqua, it's really common to plant behind the bomb chassis right here. As an attacker, you're covered, especially if someone's playing on aqua balcony. So I like to use Legion and pile up a couple goos right here. If attackers are going for a quick plant here near the end of the round, These two goos can completely deny a plant. Because if you didn't know, as an attacker, you cannot plant the bomb if you get hit by a goo mine. This is something you can easily start doing every game you play with Legion that could win you a round. Before we get started with the top 3, if you are enjoying the video so far, please do me a favor, like the video and subscribe down below. We're so close to 10,000 followers and I really want you to be a part of that. Anyway, let's get started with the top 3. And for our top 3, number 3 is going to be Tubarão. I will admit, I used to be a huge Tubarão hater, but I actually played him a little bit and honestly, I genuinely like him. He is so high on this list to me because he counters every single attacker in the game. If you're getting a call by Dokkaebi, you can counter that. If you're getting tracked by Deimos, you can counter that. If you want to try and help your bandit or Cade trick, you can counter that. I think he's just really strong right now. I think Tubarão would have a really good case at being the best defender in Siege if players actually use their gadgets. Going over his loadout, it's actually really strong. Obviously, you have the MPX. We already talked about this with Valkyrie, but this is a really good SMG. And then the AR-1550. This is the strongest gun on defense. This DMR will 3-shot anyone, and it has an ACOG. You honestly can't lose if you're good with this gun. And then just the default SAS pistol. It's still really good, but with the AR-15 or the MPX, you're not really going to be using this much. And then for the secondary gadgets, you have a nitro cell or a proximity alarm. And of course, I'm running the nitro cell every time, but prox alarms aren't the worst thing in the game, so if you really have to, you could switch it up. Our second best defender in Siege is going to be Mute. Similar to Tubarão, Mute counters almost every single attacker in the game. He can do all that while having almost the exact same loadout as Smoke. You have a similar SMG with the MP5K. This thing honestly isn't that bad. I use it on Wamai a lot, but when you have the M590, I would not use anything else, especially with the SMG-11 secondary. You just can't go wrong with Mute. Moving on to the secondary gadgets, of course, he has to have a nitro cell. I will be honest, I used to think Mute was a little overrated, but I'm really starting to see the value in him, especially with Deimos and Dokkaebi becoming more and more popular every day. And with the bulletproof cam, you could use it. I would only use it really if they have a Brava or a Twitch just to help your Mute jammer survive a little bit longer, because you can EMP things with the bulletproof camera. But other than that, Mute is a really good defender that counters almost everyone in the game. And finally, for the best defender in Rainbow Six Siege, I'm gonna have to do Doc. I will die on this hill until they nerf Doc. Not saying he needs a nerf, but he is just incredibly strong right now. His loadout is insane, with every single one of these primaries being viable in some way. The French shotgun is the most consistent shotgun in the game. If I was actually decent with shotguns and didn't love the MP5 so much, I would use this all the time. And obviously, we all know everything about the MP5. This is just the default for Doc and Rook. It does the most damage in his loadout and is honestly just a really good primary. But you could get away with using the P90. I have seen people use this on Doc recently. It's all about preference. I'm not going to say use this, don't use this, but the P90 is really good. It has a 51 round mag with an ACOG, high fire rate, comparable damage to the MP5. It is lower, but you can get away with it. Now for his secondaries, I am running the Bailiff every single time. It really is just good for sight setup. I wouldn't recommend taking a gunfight with the Bailiff, but if you do want to use the shotgun, you do have the P9 or the revolver to help you. And in secondary gadgets, I think you could go either way with this. I do switch which one I'm using from time to time. It really depends on the site. Like if I'm defending top floor canal, I'll probably go barbed wire. If I'm defending basement in Oregon, I might go the bulletproof cam. The Doc stim pistol is really what makes him the strongest operator in the game. You can have 3 teammates all at 1 HP, heal them all, and everything is back to normal. They all have boosted full health. And that's just the team aspect of it. If you want to get aggressive with Doc and the ACOG on the MP5, you can just swing everything you want, obviously hoping they don't hit a headshot. And if you take some damage, just run back, stim yourself, and re-swing that same angle. His stim pistol is really an advantage that attackers just straight up don't have. So I think if you're struggling in Siege, maybe try Doc. Every time I play Doc, I swear I have the round of my life, so I don't know, maybe just give it a shot. Anyway, that is it for the best defenders to bring with you into Siege X. Let me know down below if you would like me to do an attacking version of this list. I have a couple hot takes on the attacker list, so bear with me if I do make that video. And also, let me know down below if you did enjoy the video, and I will see you all in the next one.